you're at a restaurant. The service is great, so you leave a generous tip on the table. You walk out feeling pretty good, assuming that the money is going right into the pocket of the people who earned it. But what if it doesn't? What if the cash instead gets dropped into a system so confusing, so intentionally chaotic, that it simply vanishes? A financial black hole where money goes in, but doesn't necessarily come out. And what if the company that designed that black hole could use that confusion as its ultimate legal defense? For the servers and the bartenders at a restaurant called The Ridge Great Steaks and Seafood, this wasn't a thought experiment. It was just another Tuesday. They're paid a sub-minimum wage, just $2.15 an hour. Their actual income, the money used for rent and grocery, came from your tips. But at the end of every shift, they're forced into a kind of fucky ritual of sorts. They had to calculate 3% of the total food sales and drop that amount of cash into a collective tip pool. The leftover money from that pool, cash that should have gone to the bartenders, was put into an envelope and locked into the company safe. And that's where the story gets murky. One bartender testified in court that she never received a dime of the extra cash. The money just disappeared, poofed out of existence. The workers were left with a nagging suspicion that they had been cheated, with absolutely no way to prove it. The system at The Ridge, run by a company called 440 Corp, was a masterclass in plausible deniability, a strategy of negligence. Here's how it worked. A manager would collect the leftover cash and supposedly label an envelope with the date and the amount. This often didn't happen. Sometimes the envelope just said, bar. The next day, a bookkeeper would try to make sense of the mess, but she didn't hand out the money. Instead, she left a note on a clipboard telling the next manager on duty to distribute the cash. There was a sign-off sheet, but employees rarely signed it. So there was no documentation, no paper trail, no proof of payment. It was an accounting system built on sticky notes and allegedly good intentions. And why would a business operate this way? Because a secure, transparent, and audible payroll system costs time and money. This sticky note system was cheap. This chaos wasn't actually an accident, like one might naively assume. It was in fact a deliberate business model, a way to prioritize the company's bottom line over the workers' financial security, creating a system where their earnings were completely untraceable. Now here's a part of the story that should make you angry. The servers sued their employer for the missing wages, and the restaurant won. The court acknowledged that the system was a mess. It admitted that it, quote, could not conclusively trace the extra tips from the Ridge's safe to the bartender. But because the workers couldn't produce a smoking gun, couldn't prove that the owner or a specific manager had personally pocketed the cash, the judge ruled in favor of the company. So just let that sink in for a minute. The company's own profound negligence, its failure to keep basic records, became its legal winning argument. Their chaos became their shield. This is made possible by a legal loophole called the tip credit, which allows businesses to pay poverty wages and puts the burden of making a living wage onto the customer and the worker. We all know this. We've all been in restaurants that required us to tip 20% after all our meals. But what you might not know is that this also puts the burden of proof on the employees. The people with the least power and zero access to the company's safe were asked to solve a mystery that the company itself had created. It's a perfect example of the system working exactly as it was designed. The restaurant saves money on labor and accounting. The profits flow up to the owners, and the workers at the bottom are left with the risk, the uncertainty, and the impossible task of proving that they were wronged.